Hello everyone and welcome back to another video with the Dead Zone. I am Alfie and today I would like to introduce a new series called Chapter Retrospective. This will be where I go over a chapter released in its entirety and cover as much detail as possible about the chapter. This chapter will dive into the effect of one of the most pivotal chapters ever released in Dead by Daylight, the Halloween chapter. The Halloween chapter was first introduced to Dead by Daylight on the 25th of October 2016 and it was the first licensed DLC that was brought to the game. It brought two of horror's most well-known icons to the game, Michael Myers, the embodiment of all evil, and Laurie Strode, the sharp-as-a-knife final girl. This, as many of you know, was the chapter that brought me to Dead by Daylight, as it gave me and many other players around the world the opportunity to finally play these two legendary characters in an asymmetrical horror environment. The Halloween chapter is based on the characters from the pillar of all slasher movies, Halloween 1978, John Carpenter's legendary masterpiece that would affect horror movies for years to come. Before talking about this film briefly, I must recommend watching this, as this film is masterfully made. From the atmosphere to the music to the overall theme. Halloween 1978 focuses on one of the most famous final girls in history, Laurie Strode, and how her life is perpetually changed forever when the boogeyman starts to stalk her and kill her friends. The film was one of the first to put a masked killer against the stereotypical group of teenagers, with only one of them ultimately surviving. To say Halloween set the standards for all masked killers would be an understatement. There are even some elements that were in Dead by Daylight long before Michael and Laurie even made the scene. Notice on the home screen how the camera is set up against the killer, how it shows them watching and breathing heavily but keeps their face out of view. This was taken from Halloween, as shown by the scene of Michael stalking Laurie down the street early in the film. Even the terror radius can be linked back to the shape. The terror radius is an indicator that the killer is close and a threat. Michael's theme, the shape stalks, also show that there is someone in imminent danger of meeting the shape and subsequently their end. When the Halloween chapter was released, the scope of Dead by Daylight was changed forever, with not only with one of the strongest, if not the strongest survivor perks in the game, but also a new title was brought into the game, the Obsession, a title that would be indicated by the Entities clause appearing to clasp the survivor's icon. As mentioned beforehand, the Halloween chapter introduced Laurie Strode to the world of Dead by Daylight with her three unique perks. Whilst Laurie's perks vary in usability from the best in the game to the worst in the game, it cannot be argued that all of Laurie's perks suit her film persona perfectly. Soul Survivor. As more of your friends fall to the killer, you become shrouded in isolation and the killer's aura reading abilities towards you are disrupted. This perk regarding gameplay was and still is an abysmal perk, considering that the only way to read auras when it was released was A Nurse is Calling, Bitter Murmur, Dear Stalker, and the Race All-Seeing add-ons. This means that the heavy-hitting aura reading perks like Barbecue and I'm All Ears weren't even in the game. Due to how bad this perk was, the developers added a new feature that would give you a 75% boost to repairing generators and a 50% boost to opening exit gates, making it slightly better but still not too great. However, where the perk fails from a gameplay stance, it more than makes up for in an aesthetic stance. As more of your friends fall, the greater the odds of the person avoiding the killer is. This is very essence of the final girl, doomed to see their friends and family die around them, ultimately coming out victorious, but alone. Object of Obsession. A supernatural bond links you and the killer. Your link will reveal your auras to each other for 3 seconds every 30 seconds if you are the Obsession. You gain a 6% buff to healing, repairing and cleansing speed. This perk's efficiency can vary depending on who is using it, but its aesthetics are again true to Laurie's character. This perk makes it so the Obsession will always attract the evil in their life like a moth to a flame. It gives a person using it extra knowledge at the expense of completely exposing themselves to the evil that is chasing them. Decisive Strike. This perk, in my opinion, is the strongest survivor perk in the game, as it can completely tip the scales in favour of the survivors and cripple the killer's momentum. Before its rework, DS was designed to give the Obsession a second chance once they were caught, before it was reworked to be an anti-tunneling perk. Whilst in a much better gameplay position now, before its rework, Decisive represented Laurie's ability to fight back against evil to increase her odds of survival. The reason that this perk would later be changed is that the perk rewarded failure, and therefore was changed to be an anti-tunnel perk. The killer added with the Halloween chapter was the Shape, aka Michael Myers, the main antagonist of the Halloween franchise and one of the most iconic characters in horror history. In the movie, Michael is a threat that builds up as the film progresses and becomes more dangerous subsequently. Michael's design is the one in the game that out of all the DLC killers most closely relates to his film counterpart. His power alone, whilst not the strongest, is still scarily like Michael in the movie and highly effective if played well. Just like in the film, Michael gains his power through stalking his prey, which feeds his evil within, which, when reaches tier 3, gives Michael a plethora of advantages from insta-downs to to vaulting faster. The different tiers represent Michael's different states in the movie. Tier 1 shows Michael at his stealthiest, observing his prey from a distance whilst hiding his presence. For now. During this state, his terror radius is suppressed, allowing him to sneak around without attracting attention to himself, allowing himself to build his power. This stage represents Michael early in the film where he stayed back from his targets, whetting his appetite to take their life. Tier 2 shows Michael beginning to start the killing spree. In this stage, Michael gains his terror radius that suitingly is his theme from Halloween, the shape stalks, and now has a slightly reduced terror radius and slightly faster vaulting speed. This stage represents the stage in the film where Michael begins to pick off Laurie's friends and slowly making his presence known. Tier 3 Michael is the shape at his most deadly, having a standard terror radius, a longer lunge and a faster vaulting speed. Michael is also capable of putting survivors into the dying state with one hit whilst in Tier 3. This stage represents the part of the movie where Laurie is aware of the shape's presence and begins his relentless pursuit to accomplish what he had waited so long to achieve. On top of Michael's power being almost spot on with the film, his add-ons also stay in line with his character. Whilst Michael has many add-ons, there are 4 that stand out from the rest, that being the Scratched Mirror, Judith Meyer's Tombstone, the Tombstone Piece, and the Fragrant Tuft of Hair. Scratched Mirror. This add-on creates a permanent sense of dread for the survivors, as not only does it keep Michael in a state of stealth, but it also gives the shape continuous information about the survivor's whereabouts. This means that the shape will always know where you are, and you will never see him coming. This add-on represents the subtlety in the Halloween film, as they make Michael out not only as an unstoppable force, but also a being who inhabits the shadows and strikes fear into his unknowing victims. Fragrant Tuft of Hair. This add-on makes Michael's Tier 3 permanent until the end of the trial, at the cost of it taking longer to reach. This add-on creates the sense of dread that is the opposite of Scratched Mirror. When Michael reaches Tier 3, it is a wait until it ends and that dread is relieved. This add-on removes the relief and keeps the survivors in a constant fear that should Michael appear, he will forever be at his most dangerous. This represents Michael towards the end of the film, where after being shot by Sam Loomis, he is shown to have got back up, showing that the shape pursuit will be endless. The Tombstone and Tombstone Piece. These 2 add-ons allow Michael the power to kill a survivor by his own hands, regardless of if they've been hooked or not. This add-on represents Michael the best, as the entity brings killers in to sacrifice survivors to it. The Tombstone set shows that Michael's evil and need to kill cannot be controlled by anything, not even something as powerful as the entity. This lack of control shows just how much Michael's bloodlust will always surpass any other drive that may affect the shape. Michael's perks are also incredibly faithful to his character, with every perk being more effective if there is an obsession in play. Michael's perks are Dying Light, Play with your food, and Save the best for last. Play with your food. Every time you lose the obsession in a chase, gain a token up to a maximum of 3. Each token grants a speed boost of 5%. This perk mimics Michael's tendency to let the obsession escape him to whet his appetite and increase his power. It also shows that Michael, whilst not in any way conceivable to a normal person, enjoys the chase to the extent that he is willing to let his most prized prey escape. Save the best for last. Every time you hit someone that isn't your obsession, you gain a token up to a maximum of 8. Every token grants a 5% cooldown reduction on a successful hit. This perk shows how Michael goes after the ones closest to his obsession before finally hunting down his last prey item whilst at full power. Dying Light. Dying Light upon release gave the obsession a 33% altruistic action speed boost. However, once they were killed, every other survivor would receive an action penalty of 55% at pip 3. The developers changed this since not only was it the only one of Michael's perks that benefited not having an obsession, but it would almost always cause the killer to primarily target the obsession over all else. This was changed so that it aligned itself with the other perks in needing the obsession alive to be useful. So the perk was changed so that the obsession kept the altruism boost, but now the killer gained tokens for every time they hooked a non-obsession up to a maximum of 11. Each token gives the non-obsession a 3% debuff to all actions. Michael's perks represent his actions in the film perfectly. The habit of him attacking the people who were closest to his obsession before finally moving on to finish the target who he has been avoiding up until this moment where he finally gets to strike. The map or realm that was introduced to Dead by Daylight with the Halloween chapter was Haddonfield, Illinois, the very map where Michael and Laurie would play the most dangerous game of cat and mouse. In the past, from a gameplay perspective, this map was widely despised by the killer community, with many calls for it to be reworked to be more friendly to killers. The map was abundant in vaults that the only way to deal with was to go through them with not much other counterplay. However, the map has since been reworked to be more balanced. From an artistic perspective, this map is one of the most faithful to the original, There are so many details that can be seen in the film, from the hedge where Michael stalked Laurie and Annie to the Strode reality sign that resides outside of the Myers house. And since the rework, the detail in the house now matched the film, from the window that Michael killed Judith at to the bracket house design. The devs really need to be commended on just how faithful the map is to the original. The lengths the team went to in order to make the map faithful is worthy of praise alone. To conclude, the Halloween chapter is really the start of something amazing for Dead by Daylight, and I would argue that without it, the game wouldn't be anywhere near as good or as popular as it is today. It opened the door for many more famous killer icons to be brought into the entity and subsequently keep the wheels of Dead by Daylight rolling. The Halloween chapter holds a special place in my heart, as the original is my favourite horror movie and is a masterpiece. So to be able to play as my favourite final girl and above all my favourite masked maniac is truly amazing. Thank you all for joining my in-depth retrospective of the Halloween chapter. It has been amazing looking back at how the Halloween chapter has evolved since its initial release. I am looking forward to all the new Halloween content that we may get in the future. I am Alfie from the Dead Zone, and I hope to see you all in the fog.